Hello, my name's Matt.
And I'm Ellie. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Unfortunately we can't answer them all, but we did pick some of our faves, which we'll be answering for you now. Hi Chuck, thank you so much for your message. I am unfortunately still in Australia. I came back for a very good friend's wedding in which I was a bridesmaid, and unfortunately basically got cut off from heading back to South Africa, as that was the week when all of the travel restrictions came into place. So I'm hanging out here in my hometown of Sydney and very much looking forward to the moment that I can get back to my bush family and my happy place at Kwasiri Sands.
One of my favorite things about being a safari guide is that I'm constantly immersed in nature, which is my happy place, and I get to facilitate people's once-in-a-lifetime experiences.
My favourite thing about being a safari guide has to be that I'm in the fortunate position of being able to facilitate up-close encounters with some of South Africa's most charismatic wild animals, and I love sitting there, enjoying the moment, telling people about it, and then turning around and seeing their faces once they've seen one of these animals up close. I think my favourite has to be when I share a close encounter with an elephant bull with my guests, and they come close to the vehicle, and just seeing the look on people's faces. I've had guests well up in tears in the back of the car just from how emotional they feel being so close and connected to such a massive and awe-inspiring animal.
So one of my more scarier moments on the safari was actually on a walking safari, and we were walking through the longer grass coming up to a pan system, which is a natural water source. And as we came through the long grass, we heard this hissing coming from right next to us in this grass, which turns out to be either a female crocodile nesting or laying eggs, or a croc taking some cover in the thicker bush. But it just shows you that most of the time when you have a negative encounter with these animals, it's about bumping into their personal space without knowing that they're there. What you must just remember there is that all animals deserve respect to be given towards them. So if you do find yourself in a situation, just back out safely.
I think for me, there hasn't been a moment where I've been truly afraid or scared, but more of an adrenaline rush in response to what was happening. And the most memorable of those for me was an encounter, close encounter with a lioness, the matriarch and the older female in this lion pride that we know quite well. And I was actually on the bonnet, on the tracker seat at the time, rather than in the front of the vehicle. And we stopped some distance away from these lions, and they were lying out on an open area on the airstrip. And this matriarchal female, obviously wanting to check us out and make sure that we weren't dangerous or posing a threat to her family, paced straight towards the vehicle, eyes locked onto me. And she stopped, I would say less than 5 meters from me, staring me dead in the eye. And I think for me what was so nerve-wracking about that moment was that I couldn't quite work out what was going through her head, and it was more of an innate, I guess ancestral fear than anything else, knowing that she was more powerful than I was. And we remained like that for a good few minutes before she eventually turned around and walked back to the rest of the pride, and I breathed a very big sigh of relief.
In my opinion, crocodiles are one of the most dangerous animals in the African bush because their behavior is still quite prehistoric, and it's all about reaction to movement. You go close to the edge of the water and you are now on their food chain.
So I guess it depends what context we're talking about. In the vehicle, there's very little that we consider particularly dangerous to us. When you're on foot in the bush, obviously that's a whole different ball game. So I guess the animal I consider most dangerous, or that I like walking into least, is the buffalo, and particularly the older buffalo boys. We call them dugger boys. They are notoriously temperamental and grumpy, and a lot less forgiving than some of our other animals if you invade their personal space. So I think for me it has to be the dugger boy buffalo. That concludes our Q&A session this week. Thank you so much for all your questions. We really enjoyed answering them. We will be doing it again, so please comment below this video, submit your question for us, and we'll be answering them for you next week. Stay tuned.